Treasurer Josh Frydenberg seems to be pinning his hopes and recovery on Australia's take-up of vaccination. He reckons the economy is in better shape than it was last year and can rebound again. He joins me now from Canberra. Treasurer, welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you, Chris, and your viewers.
From the tone of most of our leaders today, this week was a bad COVID week and Victoria seems to be falling into line and falling over at the hands of what is just an indefatigable Delta variant.
Well, as you say, Delta has been a game changer and it's more contagious. It's more dangerous than the previous strains. That being said, we're still seeking to suppress the virus, contact testing and tracing and the appropriate isolation. But at the same time, we need to ensure that more and more people get vaccinated. The good news is that that is what is happening as more supply comes on. And we've had successive days with more than 300,000 jabs being delivered. And that is putting in sight for us that 70 to 80% target that was agreed through the National Cabinet following the leadership of our Prime Minister. And that target of 70 to 80%, according to the Doherty Institute, the best medical expert and advisors around, saying that at that level, you see stringent lockdowns becoming unlikely, you see the transmissibility of the virus being reduced, and you also see less people getting seriously sick. That is what we must strive for. That is why people are getting the jab, and that is why premiers and chief ministers need to stick to that plan and open accordingly when we get to those levels.
OK, the problem with that is that the Doherty Institute was banking on an 80% threshold being reached and then reopening our communities and our borders on the basis that we didn't have the kind of COVID caseload that New South Wales has at the moment.
Well, certainly the numbers in New South Wales have been going up, and we're hoping that with the tighter restrictions that they've announced and with the good work of our health professionals, that they can start to bring that caseload under control. But at the same time, people need to have hope.
Yeah.
Those small business owners watching a program tonight whose cafe is closed, who can't turn up at the factory because of the health restrictions, they need to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. They need to know that the government's economic support will continue to be there. But at the same time, premiers will be practical and reasonable and know that we can live with the virus with the sufficient restrictions in place, but we can live with the virus, as other countries have done, once we get to those 70 and 80%. It's not realistic to think we can eliminate the virus. It's not realistic to think that we can get down to COVID zero. Look at the UK, Chris. Yep. 75% double dose vaccination, yet they're still seeing 30,000 cases a day, and in some days with more than 100 deaths. So serious illness, deaths, new cases are inevitable, but at the same time, we need to get as many people as vaccinated as quickly as possible.
OK. You're obviously counting on a vaccine-led economic recovery here because that is the light at the end of the tunnel. However, at 80%, I was under the understanding that the National Cabinet signed off on the fact that there'd be no more lockdowns after we reached 80%, but both Anastasia Palaszczuk and Mark McGowan have gone back on that already last week. What message have you got to tell them about how long you will keep the purse strings open for their people?
Well, I've made it very clear that there should be no expectations on behalf of the premiers and the chief ministers that the Commonwealth's emergency economic assistance will continue at the scale and the size that we've seen currently. Once we get to 70 and 80%, they should have no expectations that that economic support will continue in that way.
So they lock down, they better be prepared to pay for their own people themselves.
Well, put it this way, right now, the Commonwealth is picking up pretty much the whole tab for the income support, the $750 payments a week. More than $3.3 billion is out the door. More than 1.4 million Australians have received those payments. At the same time, we're going 50-50 with the states. In Victoria alone, for this lockdown, we have partnered with the Victorian government in around $2 billion of direct support to small and medium-sized businesses. In Queensland, we announced a $600 million package. In New South Wales, $500 million is going out every week. And similarly, with other states and territories, we've reached agreements to support small and medium-sized businesses, because our support is for those people in those communities, recognising how important small and medium-sized businesses are to our economy and to our community.
Okay, so therefore, at that 80%, and then withdrawing some of that assistance for those states who still want to lock down, are you confident we can bounce back?
I'm very confident we can bounce back, because we've done so in the past and we'll do so again. What we know from the various bank data and from Treasury analysis is that there's some $290 billion that's been accumulated on household and business balance sheets that was not there at the start of last year's crisis. It's because the savings ratio has been higher and because government has been providing economic support. That money is ready to be spent when restrictions are eased. And in yesterday's jobs numbers, as you know, the unemployment rate fell surprisingly down to 4.6%, a 12-year low. Normally we'd be celebrating that number, Chris. But what was interesting was that in Victoria, which for that survey period was coming out of lockdown, the hours worked increased by nearly 10%, which shows you how resilient the economy is and how quickly it bounces back once restrictions are eased. And that's my message to premiers and chief ministers. Do what you need to do to get on top of this virus, but be very conscious that at 70 and 80%, you have a deal with the Australian people to start easing restrictions and to allow them to get about their lives in a COVID-safe way.
It's good to send that message nice and early so they don't get surprised by it all. Thank you so much for your time, Treasurer. Have a good weekend.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.